We have tried so much to master the art of communication, but do we intend to understand and find out if whatever we communicate is being understood? Are we open to the response that comes from what we communicate? Have you ever been there and you don't know if what you're doing is right or wrong? And you're in that state. Sometimes you dress nicely and no one tells you anything. Sometimes you do something extraordinary and you know someone must appreciate, but you don't receive anything. And you're living in that state. It's a state of confusion. One thing that I know, if feedback is delayed and those remarks come at once, then you create a situation of a bomb. And when it drops and blasts, I'm very sure it creates a mess. And tonight, on Back to Basics, we are going to discuss feedback in relationships. You're very much welcome. And in the studio, I have Councillor Amanya Martin, looking nice and great. I always tell you that I love your beard. Is that feedback?
Yes, and I appreciate it.
You appreciate. You're very much welcome. And to everyone, please tune in. We are live on Go TV and free to air. And also by typing Bethan TV UG, you will be tuned in on all our social media platforms. Be a part of this discussion as we look at the power of feedback in relationships. You're very much welcome, Amanya.
Thank you, sir.
And great to have you this last day of July.
I didn't see that. Today is 31st of July.
Yes.
The month has progressed very well.
Very well indeed.
And we are grateful to God.
All right.
Yeah, so I'm happy also to be here.
Martin?
And to be joining the discussion of feedback and its importance. And you've just given me feedback.
I've just given you feedback.
Yes.
Indeed. To start with, Martin, what is feedback? I've used the term, but what is it?
Well, feedback is information about reactions or people's actions, and this information comes in very helpful for the main purpose of helping us improve on whatever it is that we have received feedback about. It could be a behavior, it could be something. So that is feedback. We receive this on a daily. Whenever you're talking, someone gives an opinion about what you've shared. You dress somewhere, someone comments something. You get a particular performance in an exam and someone comments. You are raised in a family, there's a certain pattern of behavior, you behave some way, they comment. You do a presentation at work or somewhere and you get comments. All this is feedback, but the essence of it essentially is targeted to bring, to help to the person who is receiving the feedback to improve purposefully for improvement. It may come in different packages. It may come negatively, may come positively.
We will definitely look at different types. But then before as we expand on feedback, since we are looking at feedback in relationships, I just want us first to look at the realities. What are some forms of feedback, just in simplest terms, especially in marriage? Then we also look at work and community. So what are some of the feedbacks we expect in a marriage relationships, just in the simplest terms?
All right. In a marriage relationship, I'll say definitely there are behaviors that people portray when they are with each other. Much as there is the duality of you being together as one, there's still the individualism that you cannot take out of this whole picture. There is you before you become a couple, and that ends up making it possible that some behaviors you used to have when you were not yet married can still come out. Actually, not necessarily that people really do change a lot, because there are things that are innately part of you, they're part of your personality, and many a times you find yourself behaving that way, speaking that way to children, you know, doing some activities around the home that way, treating your wife some way, touching her some way, maybe when you're in the public, and then definitely you may receive feedback about all that. The way you
so the simple things we
children,
do at home,
yes,
can form a big part of feedback.
Yes,
that's what you're saying.
Yeah. So feedback is always that comes in reaction or in response to that you have done.
Perfect.
Yes.
How do we see feedback in the community? Just the everyday things in the community that we do that reflect feedback.
Feedback. In the community now, there are very many people. There are political leaders, there are religious leaders, there are institutions that are schools, so different settings, but all these people, they receive feedback. Let's say maybe leaders receive feedback from the people they lead. You must have heard that like in our setting, when someone is a member of parliament,
okay,
or a leader at certain level, chairman or whatever level, they are representing people.
Yes.
So whatever they do there is meant to be representing us. So that's why you see some voters, some citizens,
yes,
some after a certain period of time when they have sent their leader, their representative, that's why you see sometimes things change because they think the feedback they are giving them is that we sent you to do this, you are not doing this. Therefore, we are going to use our power not to take you back. So another thing is like now religious leaders, you know, they receive feedback because they take care of the faith of the people who gather to fellowship, who gather to worship. So they receive feedback like in a church setting. They use that example. The pastors receive feedback from the congregation. But also in the community, there are values. We talked about character. There are values that are African, that are community-centered, that are God-given, that help us to live in harmony. When someone starts to go against those values and the character starts to deteriorate, the community is propelled to give them feedback and actually move to, because communities have themselves set up a space where they can be able to discipline someone, or when they have given them feedback and an encouragement to make adjustment in their behavior and they're not responding, therefore they appeal to those. So that is how community gives feedback in all those different categories. Yeah. So
I just want to bring it from a broader context of like religious leaders and then leaders, MPs, to the daily things that we do. You jump on a border and then maybe the border person is behaving badly, speaking on phone. And have you ever met such a situation, and have you ever kind of given feedback to that person?
The interesting now technology, the apps provide you the option of how was the ride. When you cancel, they ask why are you canceling the ride that you had requested for.
That you had requested for.
Yeah, we give feedback to each other almost on a daily, in very informal settings, like you've mentioned, because the way God created us, we were meant for community. We live together, we have to work together, we have to support each other, we have to do almost dependent on each other, then ultimately dependent on God. So definitely we give feedback to each other in schools, in teachers to children, children peer feedback, you know, fathers to parents to children, children to parents, and bring it back to now. Like you mentioned about the border, the border. Yes. Yeah, interestingly, many a times you end up in conversations with these border men. Now, if you want information, but also misinformation, and because it is too much, it is overwhelming.
Yes.
Some of them are lies, some of them, but they will tell you all sorts of information.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are trying to put feedback into context in families, community, and now work.
Yeah.
How do we see examples of feedback at work, just generally, as we build our conversation?
Feedback at work now, I think among the places we focus more of our conversation is at work, because I think that's very important, that the leaders, the CEOs, the line managers, and the bosses at whatever level understand how important feedback is, and therefore put in the parameters or the right framework to be able to give feedback, which we shall discuss. Because we have settings where that feedback is given, but the challenge that we have in that setting is that sometimes they're like fault-finding missions. Yet feedback is meant to be, we mentioned that the main goal or purpose of feedback is to help someone improve. So feedback at work is helping people know what they're doing well and what they're not doing well, and it doesn't end there. Going on an extra mile, support them to do better on what they have not been doing better, but also to keep doing good on that they have been doing good. Okay. And it's so important. It goes long miles, taking the company to greater heights.
Surely.
So,
having understood, looking at different contexts of feedback in those different areas we've looked at, I think we can go ahead and how do we give feedback?
Thank you. How do we give feedback? When I was thinking through it today, I thought, and for long I've come to learn that, well, some things to really notice, that feedback can be as hurtful as it can be empowering, or it can be as empowering as it can be hurtful, because it comes in all ensembles. It can be negative, it can be positive, but in all we focus to see that is constructive, that can help us to make us better, because that's the greatest goal. So when we're looking at that being the greatest goal of giving feedback, we want to know what framework would help us actually arrive at that goal well. And I was thinking that about 2-3 things come into play. One of the things that we can't run out from is communication, because feedback is definitely communication. Then another thing I was thinking about is the environment where this communication happens. And those are like straight 2 things that come to my mind. And then I'm thinking, when you have those in place, then what are some other things you may want to consider? And I was taking an example.
Before we go to other things, you've mentioned communication and environment.
Yes.
I would request you to expand more on communication.
So on communication, it is being able to verbalize that you are commenting about someone's behavior or reaction, or that information that you want to give out to someone that can help them to improve. Now, we have many struggles with communication. Let me say, in our settings, we have grown up in our families, from the village where I grew up at my home, and what I've observed around the community is African parents, when we make anything wrong, they shout, they abuse you, they beat you, everything, the drama. But when you do something good, least number of times will your parents say, oh Moses, that was a good thing. Oh, you got first grade. Oh, that was so amazing. What would you like us to do for you as a family? No. And then we grow up in this setting of when only it's wrong behavior or it's failure that's confronted harshly, and then we do not seem to grow or learn something from that helps us to improve our lives. And you realize that actually this very cycle has continued, and as we grow and become parents later, it is the same cycle that we continue with. And in our culture, for example, as sharing with you, that to tell like your father that I love you is like
it's a taboo.
It's a taboo. It is worse even in Ruchiga. To look at your daddy and tell him, hey, daddy ndakunda.
Yes.
Someone will think, what's wrong with this young man?
Is this man,
especially with the generation
okay?
Exactly.
But let me first ask you something. When you say the parents would shout and it ends up like on a one-way, a monologue.
Exactly.
Do we consider that feedback?
It is.
In case of something that has gone wrong, is that feedback?
Yes, it is negative feedback. that has come verbally, but also expressed emotionally through that anger, through that frustration. And what it builds in this young boy or young girl is basically fear of never to try to do anything like that, but realize that the life we live, we don't do these mistakes intentionally. Because I was carrying a flask with water or tea, and I tripped and I fell down, and it broke, and then you hurl all these forms of insults about me. I have a big head, I have a big nose, I can't seem to understand simple things, I can't be looking where I'm going. And I ask myself,
how do we
even if it was you, this could happen.
How do we differentiate that from criticism?
That is actually negative criticism. Criticism is not necessarily bad. There is negative criticism and positive criticism. That's what we're talking about feedback. Okay. Positive criticism is that is constructive, that has a targeted behavior, that has a targeted way of improving what has happened. It comes in a sense of commending. It begins by appreciating that is good. It begins with a sense of an emotional attachment of first taking care of the person before it suffices, as though the flask is more important than the child. Can you begin by, what if the child and the flask both fell down? And will you go to the child first, or you will go...
The flask, because it costs money.
And are we actually valuing humanity in this place? Yes. So that is feedback, and then that you realize that we want to change the narrative and say that feedback actually was meant primarily, what we get in the definition, to help someone improve. When I get a low mark at school and all you give me is canes, how is that correlated to improving marks in mathematics?
Perfect.
Can we have a conversation where the teacher is meant to be a parent, is meant to be a counselor, is meant to be a guide, is meant to be patient, is meant to be understanding. Okay, if you beat this child this number of, also go an extra mile, invite him. But already you've created fear, you know, that the child also will struggle to come to you. Actually, what happens that in a school setting, children will end up hating particular subjects. We grew up thinking math is hard, but actually because of the stunt that the teachers have put out, you know. So feedback
communication, yes.
Communication.
It's very important.
Communication is so important.
You mentioned
yes.
was environment.
Yes. Environment, you know, there are environments that you won't be able to run a constructive conversation that is going to be, when there's a heated argument. Most have been telling you a point about something we've been discussing about, and you don't seem to agree with me, and I'm continuing, and we're boiling up, and the angers are all going high, and then in that moment there's no communication actually. We are all, it's anger that is boiling up, and we are just exchanging, and the next thing actually we're going to get in a physical fight.
And let me just first share with you this. It used to happen. The parents would give feedback to their children during the time of eating.
Those fireplace conversations.
Yes, when they have just served food, and it's when they bring, you didn't do this, or you did something
you
wrong.
You may not even eat the food.
Yeah, you obviously don't.
It's like this meeting is about, and that's also what you find in appraisals for different organizations. They're like fault-finding missions. How is someone going to really be able to improve or get a zeal or a desire, motivation to do better, when all the times in appraisals you're mentioning about whether they're not doing well, they're not doing? Begin by appreciating. Now you serve food. It's meant to be a happy time. It's meant to be a time of feasting. Maybe it's my favorite meal, and then you begin by, even before we pray or after praying, then you first say, you first say something, some satirical kind of thing about me and the behavior that I portrayed that you didn't like, and then it's everybody who is going to eat seems like they first go like, oh, wait, what was that he said? Oh, and then I'm going to feel so embarrassed. I don't know what to do even.
So in marriage situation where during the time of intimacy, before starting, it's when the wife said, you didn't leave the Kameza money.
So
you think that can create really a better environment for feedback?
Well, we talked about communication. Environment doesn't do alone without communication.
Surely.
Communication and talking about environment is thinking about an opportune moment where you can discuss something meaningful when both of you are not angry, when both of you are not high on the height of your emotions about how frustrating the day has been, or how one of you frustrated the other, and you know. So I would encourage for people to be creative. Actually, people don't receive feedback when it is normally negative. I think I would go straight into talking about the framework of giving feedback. Commendation.
Before you leave the environment, I believe it's an important aspect.
Yeah.
What are some of the best kind of tips that you can use to actually determine that this is the best environment to start giving feedback, especially if it's negative?
So negative or positive environment is important. So I mentioned that I suggest creativity, and that comes from a place when you are not up in arms, when you're not still angry, and this, you may have a scaffold today, and by the way, also to put it clearly that there's no perfect person, there's no perfect man, there's no perfect woman. As long as we are this side of heaven, we are all weak and fallen. It's by the grace of God that we be able to do the good that we do. So we're beginning from what we talked about, key features of character development, humility. Beginning by appreciating that you also make mistakes, and then also give another person also the grace to accommodate them and forgive them and work towards helping them to become better. So when you are coming from that background, after a day, it may not be immediately. You don't have, and something you learn about conflicts, there are some people who may say, I want it to be finished today. Sometimes conflicts are not solved like that. You may even not agree about some things, but as a couple, there's some things you remain united because you have a bigger goal that you have more than this one argument about Man U and Arsenal and or political parties. So the environment, when I talk about the environment, I'm saying creativity. Think of a time when both of you are okay. It's been a good day. You can even take someone out. Maybe the reason even why the conflict could have come from, and women know how to articulate these things. They may even tell you in a small conflict, but they remind you how you've not been on an outing for the whole year, and you are here. And you're here. So when they have given you a hint, then after you had a scuff about a few things here and there, after that, go and think as a man. Day one, day two, talk to other men, seek guidance, and then, or if you want to visit a professional therapist to speak about some of things for your own help, to be able to help the family, and then find a day. Come from work, say, you know what, honey,
conducive
for and say, today feedback. I want us to go eat somewhere.
Yes.
After and then when you go there, start the conversation.
Surely. We are looking at conditions and best practices that one should adopt in order to give effective feedback. And you have been touching about negative, positive, and all those forms of feedback. We are going to break shortly, but when we come back, we will dive into different forms of feedback and different types and where they can be applicable. For now, let's go for a short break. We continue to talk about feedback, the power of feedback in relationships, be it in community, be it at work, be it in families, all our days of life. We continue to speak about feedback and how it's very important. Actually, you can give us feedback as you watch this show, just by typing Bethan TV UG on all our social media platforms. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and we are streaming live on YouTube. We are also live on GoTV and free to air. Also available on the mobile application. So you can give us feedback about this topic, the power of feedback in relationships. And in the studio, I have Amanya Martin. And for the break, we are looking at feedback specifically or in the context of marriage. And we are saying that there are small things that happen in marriage that would require feedback. The dressing style, the appreciation, and small things.
Yeah.
But do we see these things happen in marriage, Martin?
Well, it is so unfortunate that in many of I'll speak from the background of the African setting. I think some men, even with their wives, and you know, women love those compliments, to have gotten that new dress, and she goes in the bedroom and puts it on, and it's a Sunday morning or Saturday afternoon, you're going for a party, and she says, how does this look? And you don't even know what to say. Or you're actually in the car hooting, saying, where is she? And she comes and she sits, joins you, complaining, and then, you know, would you pause and give that compliment? And this doesn't cost you, you know, you have to. So,
you're still a man.
You know, yeah, it doesn't make you less of, you won't start to think, but actually there's that joke that he said that, you know, men were in a conference and they were told to send their women messages about I love you. I don't know men when they last told their wives I love you. They said when they send the message, some people are saying, where are you? Who is having the phone? Yeah. What is the problem? Do you need any help? Do I need to send some money? But yet these are things we need to live with every day, because look, like you said, all these things when the journey was starting, like it shouldn't appear as though it has changed. You still need, and they love it, they appreciate it, they know that you mean it when you say it. It's not enough to say that they see it in the Kameza money, that if the school fees for children is being paid, mention it. This actually comes direct to you and your partner. You know. So we mentioned about environment. We mentioned creativity. Just this is an example of one day you come and actually use it as a win. Actually tell her you planned this week that you needed to go out, and therefore you ask someone, either your cousin sister or your sister or someone you know, to come and help with the children, and then take out for a date. And then when you're there eating nice, having a good time, you know, tell your husband, say, by the way, baby, the socks. And this is what would make actually much easier for me to find them and be able to wash them and prepare them. So if you can help me keep putting them here, me, I'll be there to help. Whenever you forget, I'll try to help pick them, put them here, and then, like, it doesn't come, it's not a fault finding mission. You're saying this helps me to arrange for you clothes better. It helps me to know if which ones to take to the dry cleaner, or if you are not rebounding the vest 3 times. Yes. if I know where the dirty ones are, if I know where the washed ones are, you know, because the next thing, actually, if you don't do that, it's as it helps. The next thing, you're going to wake up in the morning, you're going very early in the morning and it's still darkish, and then you put on a dirty shirt, you get to work, they'll complain about your wife. It is not you. But yet actually, your wife is giving you feedback, says, let's arrange the clothes this way, let's arrange the clothes this way, so I can keep you as here, and then you look smart, and then it's coming back to you. Okay. If you don't do it, you're the one losing.
All right. From the way you've brought it, it shows some kind of intentionality.
Yeah, intentionality.
That brings me to the question. What is the framework on which we can base on to give an effective feedback?
So the framework of giving effective feedback, I want to look at these 4 components. One of them is commendation. That's why I said, even when you go out, begin by telling your wife the best things, the nice things. I think I watched that movie, Fireproof, where the men gave themselves a challenge to say the things about their wives, to comment about them being good for, was it 40 days or something? Like there are a lot of good things to comment about them. And I'm not saying only the family setting. There are a lot of good things to talk about some of your juniors and employees at work as a boss. There are a lot of things to talk about your children that are good. As a counselor, before the clients present their problems also, but as they present, also help them see their strength, help them see the things that they are doing well, that they have been able to accomplish. actually those become a motivation. Those become like flowers they plant on their road as they are working towards that, that you're going to challenge them about towards the end. So, commendation, begin with commendation. This is how...
Like look for those
Look for,
things.
and they are there.
Look for them.
They are there. Whenever you try to look for them, you will not find one. You find more and more and more and more. And we all love people to tell us what we are doing good, beginning from there. Because many a times when probably client goes to seek help, or when a junior goes to ask for some support from the supervisor or whatever, many a times it's when they are struggling and then they're in a place of failure or they are not figuring things out. And you begin by actually, it's a hopeless situation already. You begin by again tackling that and then putting them down. Begin by looking out that is good. Begin there. Jesus does the same.
Should that be a one way?
Actually, it is prompting that if it was in a couple, I think, and you can indulge with me on this, that actually when someone says good things about you, the human nature, God's way, you are prompted also to respond with something good.
It creates a debt.
It creates a debt. You are prompted also to say the things about your husband that have been come, even the things that are bad that you had come to squeeze the person about. That's the language of the young people.
Yeah.
Like your guards are all taken down. The anger subsides. You came to shout at your husband and whatever, and they start by giving you all these compliments and telling you how they've been watching, how you've been working hard this week, how you've taken care of the children, and you're like, oh, you've been watching all this. How did you not tell me? And then the next thing is they hug you, they tell you so what they appreciate about you and tell you maybe what they've been struggling with and need your help to come in. It changes the environment. Going on. So the next thing I would say after that is comfort. You're smiling as though you're enjoying this. You're going to apply these things.
Yes.
The next one is comfort. People come to you when they are in the place of suffering, when they are in a place of frustration, when they are in a place of struggle or failure. Begin from a place of giving them a place of peace, a place of relief, a place of comfort. This makes it easy for them to actually appreciate. This makes it easy for them to receive the feedback that you will give, whether negative or positive. One thing that the trend you're setting, the foundation you're setting is that it is well-meaning. You're not as though not appreciating or being aware of what they're going through. You are aware of what they're going through. But then over that, you come, we will say that actually, when we talk about comfort, we're not saying we're giving only sympathy for allowing people to continue loathing in their negativity and failures. No. Sympathy comes with an action. Comfort, we're talking about sympathy coming with an action. And you can't have either of the two.
Sympathy or empathy?
Sympathy. You sympathize with them, you also actually empathize with them, but then this doesn't come in its own, it comes together with action. Starting to focus actually on where they are going.
Don't you think that's a component in that framework, especially at work, might kind of make someone neglect some of the facts at the expense of giving, in the name of giving sympathy? You end up kind of, because you're supposed to bring out the facts. Let's take an example of poor performance. And for you want to sympathize with the person, and because the person is lazy, comes late, and then you don't want to talk about that because you want to sympathize with the person. Do you think there is a compromise if in that component, if you're not careful?
Well, it depends on how it's communicated. Communication has to be, you will need to be confident and firm about what you're talking about, and then authentic. Having empathy for this person because of what's happening, beginning from a place of comfort, doesn't mean that you're encouraging them to stay in that lazy attitude and kind of. That's why I'm saying it is not comfort if it is only sympathy or empathy detached from an action plan. It is sympathy and empathy coming along with an action plan of what they're going to do about what has been happening. And that's why the next step becomes conviction.
Okay.
Now you draw them to a place of conviction. If it is in the Christian circle, in that setting, that's where you start helping someone see the sins they've been involved in, starting to draw their attention to those, and then appreciating where their struggles have been, and then and sometimes it may the priorities may differ. Some of the convictions you are leading to them building may not be what they see. They may have excuses for them even at that moment, but then over time that will build. But you help bring that one out well, because that is what Paul tells Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 16, that the word of God has the power to rebuke us, to correct us, to teach us, to train us in the way of righteousness. So we are convicted about the wrong, the character flaws that have been pointed out by this person helping us, give us feedback, and then that will help build in us a challenge. That's why the last point is a challenge. You challenge them now to go and put in action that they have been convicted about, the changes they are going to make, and then the challenge is now you can't continue spinning in the sins you've been in the character flaws that people have identified, in your laissez-faire attitude towards your work at the workspace, in your failed parenting skills and whatever. No, you can't continue in that. The end game of the commendation, the comfort, the conviction, the challenge is that now the actions you came up with when you were comforted, the convictions, the things you have seen that you've not been doing right, and these have been actually hurting others and hurting you. Appreciating that, then you appreciate the fact that you need to change. And that is where the challenge is. You can't continue spinning here. Now you're making steps towards the kind of life that you want to start living, the kind of behaviors you want to develop, the kind of character traits that you want to get and come out of where you had fallen. So that is the flow.
That's the flow. If you can summarize those flow.
Yes.
Like the first one?
The first one is commendation, encourage, appreciate,
yes.
Give credit where it's due.
The second one?
The second one is comfort.
Okay.
Begin by empathizing with someone.
The third one?
Give them a place of peace, give them a place of relief. Already they have come with a lot of burden. First let them breathe in, and then help them see.
Breathe in, breathe out.
Yeah, breathe in and breathe out.
Okay.
And then help them, draw them to a place of, after empathizing with them, lead them to an action, a plan of what they are going to do to make the changes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the last two was conviction and challenge.
The last was conviction and challenge.
Right.
Yes.
The way you've stated them, it's in principle, this is really very good. But we've seen that in reality, it's hard. It's actually far-fetched sometimes to act like that and effectively give feedback. What are some of the challenges to effective feedback?
Challenges to effective feedback. The truth is that we all fail. We all have struggles we go through at a certain point in life, in our career. Indeed, we are only human. I think it's Mandisa who sang a song that says, we're human. So we begin also, we talked about giving feedback, but also we want to talk about the side of the receiver. The receiver, the one who gives feedback, we mentioned the character traits of good character development, of the one who's giving this feedback, ought also to be humble, ought to be, he's challenging this person who has put out their principles, he's holding them accountable to live by those principles. He's helping them to become intentional. He's helping them to keep up a self-discipline they've put themselves up to where they want to be. He's helping them to be accountable so they can be able to achieve that they are working towards in growing a good character. So, you asked about the challenges.
The challenges, yes.
The challenges
are about the giver.
Yeah, the challenge is if the giver doesn't know how to give the feedback. I was writing a post, I think I normally put them sometimes on Twitter or on my statuses on WhatsApp. Many a times you be in some companies and you hear the boss will come at the peak of their noise, a lady or a man talking about some junior staff somewhere in the corridors and saying things, and I'm like, look, relax, brother. We have a boardroom. We have a counseling space. we have a disciplinary space. Call Moses there, sit down with him, begin by appreciating him about what he's been doing well, comfort him about the struggles you may have seen with him, and then actually start now bringing about the flaws that you've observed in him, challenge him to, let's do feedback that way. Let's do feedback that way. Let's change the narrative. And I appreciate, by the way, that sometimes the reason is because they have their own struggles mental health-wise. Maybe they had a conflict at home with the wife, and they're displacing this anger on this young engineer at work, or this young accountant at work, who just needed some help, and the person is saying, I've taught you this thing a million times. Actually, for a matter of fact, it's not a million times. Maybe you took the guy through last week, and your feeding already is too much. It's not too much. It means that you have to disciple them, be patient with them, give them some time. So the
character of the giver
of
feedback,
yes, matters.
Reaching you.
You can't give what you don't have.
You can't.
If you yourself you're not put together, then you can't help someone.
Someone.
Then I go to the side of the receiver. Is the receiver humble? You know, of course, when it's negative, someone can easily say that you hate me, you harass me, you're just out actually to frustrate me with my career. But you know, if it's talked about more than once, twice, thrice, it can be that Moses is out to frustrate you. Of course, there are some of those instances of maliciously someone wanting to taint your name and bring you down. Some people do those things. So unfortunate. May God really forgive them. Because why would you do that?
But you see, sometimes the receiver, it's just reactionally, because the giver's approach is really to frustrate the person. And
yes, so in a sense,
good environment,
yes,
for effective feedback.
So that's why we said a good environment, communicating well, would actually facilitate good constructive feedback that the person is going to go and ponder about, because of how you gave it very respectfully, politely, patiently, and actually went an extra mile to say, Moses, I'm here actually to support you. In case even what we're talking about, you're trying to put it into practice and you need my support somehow, somewhere, let me know. You can come to my desk, or you can give me a call on the intercom. I come to you and help you work out that file. So the receiver also is meant to be humble. Is meant to, and when you receive the feedback, put in practice. Also sieve. You can tell those who are maliciously trying to tell you some things. The haters. Young people say, haters gone ahead. So you can see those who are doing it because they don't like you, because they actually feel jealous because of your good skills, you know. But you can also see those who are appreciating what you're doing. Because Moses, if I normally appreciate, actually because of that relationship, even when I come to tell you something that has not worked out that I've observed, you will appreciate also. I think I would also throw in a comment there that I think also, let's purpose to develop relationships. Friendships that are really so simple. You know, say hello to a workmate. You know, help them with a file if you have that idea or skill. Help them figure out something they're trying to work on. Be self-giving. You know, character is so much actually about self-sacrifice than popular compromise. That, you know, you will already be doing something out of your way to support others, rather than trying to look for a name at work, so that when you do something, people know you, oh, Moses, that guy is a good guy. The real guy is this humble guy actually who's helping everybody. That's real success. That's real joy. That's real satisfaction. That actually you're helping people get their work done as you're doing your work.
As you're doing work. And that, I think, makes it easier for you to give feedback. Because you've been doing it constantly.
Because someone can trust you.
Negative,
yes, someone will receive it. They say,
exactly.
Moses, by the time Moses observes this and says it, I think it means something. I may need to. Yeah.
Surely.
Yes. The receiver also needs to be humble and know that feedback is something we live with every day. It's part of the process of growth. There's no perfect husband, there's no perfect father, there's no perfect brother or sister, there's no perfect boss, there's no perfect, the perfect is one.
The perfect is one.
Is God.
We've really shared much about feedback, and I just wanted we look at the misconceptions or the myth surrounding feedback. Yes. If we can brainstorm on the myth surrounding feedback.
Now, the myth surrounding feedback, I think if there's anything people dread in organizations or at workplaces, are those evaluation meetings, are those performance appraisals, because of course one of the things could be the way they are carried out. If the HRs, human resource managers, have not put into consideration training probably those they bring into audits. People dread these things, I don't know. But you see, I think that in a sense you can't run out from speaking into your character. If you've been doing something secretly, if your values or standards or moral, ethical principles have been compromised, you're likely to be fearing the appraisal. That's now you, before we go to the one who's giving the appraisal, the one who is in charge of that.
What advice do you give that person fearing the appraisal?
Now, let's begin with you. Do what you're supposed to be doing the right way you're meant to be doing. If you can't seem to figure out by your own self, find help from colleagues at work, or a colleague who may not be even at your workstation, maybe works somewhere, but is a colleague in the field. But also do your research. There's a confidence that you gather when you know you have your files well arranged. And even when the performance appraisal, some of them create tension, you realize that's not for all. There are guys who always have their things ready, and if the boss says no, you'll be shocked after the meeting, say, but I think you can always check with Moses and see how he arranges his files. And now when the boss says that, genuinely encouraging guys, people get jealous. People start trying to work you down for
instead of
actually saying
that and incorporate
let's gather maybe one of the afternoons, and
yes.
then Moses can give us a presentation, as a work team or as the department. So and we talked about character. We can't overemphasize that. Your character should be a lifestyle. As a father, can you tell your children, imitate me? Or you know that actually you've not put up a standard that you can, does your character speak for you when you'll be long gone after maybe you've left that organization? So you should lead with your lifestyle. If you say you're Christian, practice what you preach. Don't say this here and do the other here. Let your character, let your lifestyle speak. Don't try to explain, and that will help actually people. You will help you receive feedback, will help you give feedback.
Yeah. Actually, from even what you discussed, I think one of the other misconceptions is that feedback is a monologue, maybe from a superior or from a father to either juniors or the children.
We need to talk about actually the fact that it's two-way. But our culture setting has hailed feedback coming from only the superiors. Like at work, by the way, it's possible for a cleaner to give the CEO an idea, or to give him feedback about maybe, because it can be as simple as actually how to park your car. So actually whenever you park it here, it makes it easy for me when I'm cleaning the compound or the parking space. So actually you put the car in a space where they could have occupied 2 or more people, and then so that is feedback. Feedback is not only in formal setting, education,
once in a year,
grades, result orientedness, goals, performance, and then it's a conversation. Actually, when you look at it that way, you realize that actually you save yourself a lot of struggle, that you can get a beautiful idea from a guard, as a boss. But we have companies where actually when the boss comes into place, you can't get into the lift with the boss. Where when the father comes back home, children all disappear under the bed or cover themselves on the bed, and they presume as though they are sleeping. And some of them are so nice, they have the audacity when the father comes and says, Moses, are you sleeping? I know, I told you you're supposed to be. Some of them are children and they just do what they know how to do. They say, yes, Daddy, I'm sleeping. To show you like this thing is, yeah.
Martin, can I request for feedback?
Yes. Fantastic. That is what we are supposed to be doing actually. Because some people may fear to tell us, but when Moses, you've, and of course, I mean, that comes from a place of humility. When you say, Martin, if you, and I encourage especially, of course, men and women, develop some of these close friendships. Your friends who tell you the truth about you, the truth about what you're not doing right, and the truth about what you're doing right. Some others may do that when they need things from you because you have particular status or wealth, or they gain things from you. But there are those close people who will tell you who you are, and they mean it because they do it to help you.
Thank you very much.
So let us always request for
just,
feedback.
Lastly, as we conclude, I see our time is well spent. What is that simple advice do you give to this person or an individual, someone out there, about feedback or attitude towards feedback?
Well, to you who is watching us out there, maybe you're a CEO, maybe you're a husband or father or mother, whatever level you are, as a leader, politically or wherever, as a religious leader, appreciate feedback and actually encourage people. Be vulnerable and humble enough to ask people to tell you about things that you're doing well and things that you're not doing well. It will help you so much in your growth process, in your career, as a minister, as a political leader or representative, and then it will help you to do what you do better. Like is entrenched in the definition of feedback. Its main purpose is to help us improve everything about us and for the glory of God, and the greatest room that there can ever be is the room for improvement.
The room for improvement. Well said, Martin. Thank you very much for your time and being part of this conversation and giving us your ideas about feedback. Indeed, feedback is very important. Just be open-minded and embrace it. It has been me, Moses, your host of Back to Basics, which happens Monday to Friday from 10 to 11. Always keep tuned in and follow us to enjoy and learn one or two from these important topics. For now, have a blessed night.